Well, hey friends, this is Jennifer, and this is the Jennifer Allwood Show, the podcast for women who want to find freedom in both their life and in their business. I own a multi-7-figure-a-year coaching business. I'm also a certified life coach. So I have the honor of helping thousands of women every single month make money in the online space and help them to get unstuck from whatever is holding them back, all without sacrificing their faith or their family. In this show, you're going to get the very best life and business advice, always with a healthy dose of Jesus. So buckle in, my friend. I'm so excited that you are here. Hi friends. How are you? This is podcast episode number 281. Sometimes it's interesting, like to think of what could we name this podcast? And so, it could be called When It's Time to Let Go of Something. It could also be called when you decide just to cut the cord, or things Jen decides to start and then stop. You take your pick. What we're going to talk about today is when you know it's time to maybe let go of something in your business, and maybe, trying to help discern why it maybe was good for one season and not this one, or why it's not working, or what have you. I just want to encourage you to make some of the changes in your business that you need to make so that your business can be successful and can have all of the things in it that it needs to, without any of the old things in it that are no longer for the season, that are holding you back, that are, doing whatever. Okay. So let me tell you a little story. So I made a decision in my business recently, and many of you know that I have, 2 Instagram accounts. So I have my regular Jennifer Allwood, and then I have Jennifer Allwood Home. I started Jennifer Allwood Home at the beginning of the pandemic for a couple of different reasons. And by the way, I never suggest you have more than one Instagram account until you have really figured out how to grow your audience and are kicking butt on one Instagram account. Okay. Because if you can't do one, you certainly can't do 2. Or if you ever are planning on selling a portion of your business, in order for it to be sellable, it has to do very little with you and do a lot more with the product or the service that you have. And so having its own social media that is not tied to your face, your persona as the brand, would be really helpful. So those are the only 2 times I suggest that you have a second Instagram. Okay. So I have a second Instagram that I started at the beginning of the pandemic because I needed something fun. Can I say that? Needed something that just felt a little bit lighter. Jason and I knew we were going to be purchasing a home in Florida, a second home there. And so I wanted something that was still a creative outlet that would make me feel a little bit better, that I could still post pretty things on, that I just didn't feel like went with the content on my regular Jennifer Allwood. So we started the Jennifer Allwood Home account. In addition, we started the Jennifer Allwood Home line. So fun things, rugs, candlesticks, gold trays, gaudy gold, glittery things that I love. All right. And the truth of the matter is, I've always wanted a product line. I've always wanted a home line. And so we thought, you know what, then let's just come out with a home line. So we made it happen. And then I've recently made the decision, you know what, I don't think we're going to do the product line anymore. And took that decision to the team. And this decision was based on many things. And I'm sharing this with you because some of you have some things in your business right now that you're like, I don't know, do I keep doing it? Do I not keep doing it? I keep doing it. And you're dilly-dallying, jick-jacking around, trying to figure out, should I keep doing it? Should I not keep doing it? And so here's some things that led me to my decision. Okay. Sometimes we keep things in our business that are actually not producing any fruit out of ego. We do. What will people think if I shut it down? By the way, I'm not attached to that at all. I have no ego in the Jennifer Allwood Home line. I know pretty things. You can go look at my Jennifer Allwood Home on Instagram. I know how to put together a pretty home. I know that I could have a home line in a lot of different ways. It doesn't have to be just in this one. So this is not, I was not holding on to it for ego, but I know sometimes people do, because they're like, this has always been a part of me. We have women that'll come into my coaching groups all the time, and they have a brick and mortar that they're just losing sleep over because of the cost of rent or how many hours they have to spend there, but they won't let it go. And I'm like, well, why not? Well, I've had this store for 5 years. I've had, this is what people know me for. And to which I say, there comes a time when you've got to separate ego from what currently makes sense. All right. Both on the budget and, just from a spiritual perspective, because so often we will want to continue doing things that were for last season, and they're no longer serving us or serving the Lord in this next season. Okay. And so when you feel like God's telling you, you know what, you should probably let that go, I suggest you drop it like a hot potato. Okay. And leave the ego at the door, because you just never know what is right behind that. All right. So, made the decision. Number one, I, always, wanted the product line, like I said, but it just felt like it was not producing enough fruit. And let me tell you why. There just isn't as much margin in products, is the truth, as there is in courses, classes, webinars, workshops, mastermind, my paid group. I mean, it's hard when, if I put a course out, there really is not a whole lot of overhead when somebody buys that, other than paying for my team. And now you could make the argument, well, don't you host them on Zoom, and the Zoom costs every month? Okay, well, of course. But what I'm saying is, the cost of a product that, we have to pay for, and then our shipping out, whether the shipping cost goes back to the consumer or to us or whatever, by the time you add that all up, the profit margin on the product line was so substantially less than what it is for all of my courses, all of those other things. And so when I look at that and I'm like, okay, weighing, it feels completely out of balance. And the truth of the matter is, my favor's over here in coaching. This is my field of favor. This is where God has graced me. This is where God has shown me that things are easier. And sometimes it would feel like, oh yeah, I have to send out an email and tell people about the product line again. And so it felt like it was too much work and not producing enough fruit. It felt like it was, there just wasn't enough revenue out of it, or not even just the revenue, but just like what we actually was like making after, we paid for everything. And so those are two big reasons. And the thing is, like, when you have something like that you're doing in your business, it is a distraction. And so you've got to weigh, is the distraction worth what we're getting out of it? And in our case, I say no. And by the way, the older you get, the more you don't have the capacity, or you need to be smarter than what you were at a younger age in terms of just like throwing things at a wall and seeing if they work. If they're not working, pull the plug. Figure out a different way of doing that. I can still have a product line. I mean, I would love to get my products into Hobby Lobby's corporate. They know that. I would love to partner with Nebraska Furniture Mart in a line of bold, beautiful, gaudy, plush, velvety, gorgeous, hot pink, bright blue, cobalt blue sofas. I mean, I would love to do that. I would love to partner with a wallpaper company with a line of wallpaper. But I've decided that for us, I don't want to store any products. And so it was beginning to feel like a little bit of a distraction from the main thing. And when you're building a business and you're building, to some degree, like a kingdom, an empire, right? Something you can leave for your kids one day. You don't have the same capacity for distraction as when you were older. I promise you when I say that, like, the older you get, all of your decisions, they have to make sense. They just do. Because at this point, like, I don't want to be working, until I'm 80 years old. And, at 51 almost, I have to think through things a little bit better. And so listen, if you have something that is just too much work and not enough, income and revenue out of it, I suggest you just double check that and look at that. When it comes to a product line, there's some things that you need to think about. It is, where are you going to put product storage at? We have people all the time, especially the women that come into my mastermind, that want a product line. And I'm like, okay, talk to me about that. Okay, I want a subscription box. Okay, great. What's going to be your profit margin on a subscription box? Okay, so $15 a box. Okay, so how many boxes do you have to actually sell in order for that profit to like replace what you're making over here, or in order to pay all your family's bills? I mean, people don't think about that. They think about, oh, I just want a product line, but they don't realize you're going to have a lot of traffic and a lot of sales in order for the profit margin to give you enough revenue to make it worth it, to actually make it worth it. And then you got to think through, okay, where are we going to store things? How is the shipping going to work? What are we going to do with returns? Who's going to do customer service? You have to have a strategy for like selling the physical product. How are you going to, move the product? What are you going to do when you have product left? How, are you going to stand up against your competitors? What's going to make you different? What would make people want to buy from you? Do you already have a built-in audience? Do you have a large audience with a large email list? Because if you do, man, then you can really move some product, definitely. However, if your price point isn't high enough, it's like this combination of, you've got to have enough people to sell to, You've also got to have enough of a profit margin, and you've got to have a real strategy for how you're going to move it. In our case, I have not been willing to put enough time into a product strategy to really make it lucrative for us, because I know where my favor's at and it's over here. So it felt like a distraction. So we have closed down the Jennifer Allwood home line, or are in the process of doing that. And I'm sharing that with you because I think that sometimes when we're on social media, we see people just talking about their wins. And I'm not considering this a failure, by the way, in any means. Now I know more. And I'm like, yeah, I don't want to do that. I just don't want to do it. Could I do it? Sure, I could do it. Could we keep it going? Sure. But is it way easier just to have the same amount of revenue by getting people into a workshop with me every month, having a couple more people, get into my mastermind? Absolutely. Absolutely. So sharing that with you today, because I know that sometimes we let our ego keep us in places that God really has instructed us to leave. Sometimes we don't want to let go of something because we're like, if I just tried it a different way, if I just did this, maybe if I give it a little longer, when it's like, just, you're bleeding dollars a lot of times in holding on to it. Sometimes we don't want to let go of things in our business because we don't want other people to think that we were a failure. I could have not done this podcast. I could have been like, you know what? I'm not going to even let people know we've closed it down. I'll just do it on the down low, real quiet. Nobody will even really know. But the truth of the matter is I want it to be like a learning opportunity for someone. I don't care that that it didn't generate enough revenue for me to want to continue putting time and effort into it. I don't care at all that you know that. Because it was making money, obviously, or we wouldn't have had it at all. But it just, compared to the other ways the company brings in money, there just was literally no comparison. So listen, if you're like, ooh, well, shoot, Jen, I was wanting to have a line of, earrings, or I was wanting to have a line of coffee mugs or whatever, that's fine. But if now you're rethinking that, I have a quiz you can take. It's at jenniferallwood.com/quiz. And it tells you, it's going to ask you questions about, do you like taking pictures? Do you already have an audience? It'll ask you a bunch of questions, and then it'll tell you which of the 8 revenue streams that you should focus on to make money in your business. And, listen, by the way, there are so many people that just kick butt when it comes to product sales. I'm thinking of Rachel Stone, who's in my mastermind. She is the owner of Macy Kate Boutique, adorable little girl clothing. And she had a $100,000 weekend recently. So done correctly, oh man, people are able to just absolutely kick butt at this. Some of you probably have heard Jason is starting a product line. I've talked about it with him on the podcast. Him and a friend are starting a line of golf apparel. You will be seeing that debuting this fall. And so, we're going to be trying a product line just in a completely different way with a soul focus, or, it's his soul focus for a while. And so listen, I don't want to discourage you from starting a product line. I just want to tell you some of the things that you need to look at from different angles. Go check out what Rachel's doing at Macy Kate Boutique. Just kicking butt at it. Absolutely kicking butt at it. And so if you have the capacity, and if you're not sure if you do, go take that quiz. And also if you're like, hey, tell me more about this mastermind, you can always go get on the wait list for me to send you an application once we open again. It's at creatorsnextlevel.com, because it's called the Next Level Mastermind. So just go to creatorsnextlevel.com. You can fill out information there, and we'll send you an email when we're taking applications again. But listen, do not continue to hold on to things that are no longer serving you in this season, or that God has told you to let go of, or that you just don't want to, what are people going to think? There's no time for that. You don't have time to be holding on to things that aren't serving you well in this current season. And so, you know what? We learned a lot from that product line. I learned a lot about what I would do again, what I would not do again. I learned what I would love to do going forward. Because like I said, I'd still love to have a product line, but it's going to be in a different way. Going to be in a different way. So I hope that this was useful today. If it was, send me a DM on Instagram, or screenshot this and share it to your Instagram stories. I'd love that. I always like to share some of those. So love you guys being here, and I will see you again next week. All right. Bye-bye. Friend, thank you so much for listening to the podcast again this week. I'm so honored that you come back for every episode, and that you share the Jennifer Allwood Show with your friends and family. Every time I see you guys post about it on Instagram or Facebook or something, it just makes me do a little happy. So thank you.
make sure that you subscribe to the podcast if you never want to miss an episode. So you can go to Apple Podcasts or Stitcher or Spotify or any of the other podcasting places and subscribe each week so that every week you get the new episode when it releases. So just know that I love bringing you relevant content. I love bringing you great guests. And one of the ways you can help us here at Team Allwood is by leaving the podcast a review. So if you have just a second to do that, would you go over and leave a review for the Jennifer Allwood Show? Thank you again. You're amazing. I'm honored to be here. Until next week. Bye-bye.